Okay, good morning, everyone. Bruchim Habayim. Today's deluxe breakfast and class is dedicated in loving memory of Gerald Schaefer, Alav Shalom, Lin Nishmat Zelik, Noach, Ben Sarah, and Yosef, Alev Shalom, Zelik Noach, sponsored by his son, Philip Schaefer, who's here this morning. Where is he gone? There you go. Thank you so much. It should be a schut for his neshama and an aliyah for his neshama as well. Okay, also for Shalem Eliyahu Shimon Ben Mazal for Tanei. And of course, the entire year is sponsored by Ruth Orfali Bat Adela, Aleh Shalom, by her family. Chana Fahi, Chana Bat Sima Fegasha, Rufor Shlema, Rufor Nefesh, or Rufor Guf. Okay, let's start with a quick bracha. Baruch Ata Adonai, Eloheinu Melech Haolam, Shakol Niyeh Bivaro. Oh, that's good. Baruch Hashem. Okay, dear friends, a lot to discuss with you this morning. I want to start with one letter. How one letter in the Torah that is added or changed can teach us mountains of information about a certain topic or theme. And the letter appears in the discussion that Moshe Rabbeinu has with Paro. And we know that the 10th Makkah, the last three Makkot, the last three plagues appear in the Parsha. We have number 8, number 9, and number 10, the last three. These three were the most difficult. They got increasingly harder. And it was these three plagues that broke the back of Paro and Mitzrayim and eventually let the Jewish people go. The 10th plague was the most terrifying for Paro because the 10th plague, of course, was Makat Bechorot, the killing of the firstborn. Let me ask you a question. How many firstborns were there in every home? What would you think? How many firstborns are there per family in Mitzrayim? You would have thought one, right? The rabbis tell us no. There could have been multiple firstborns because firstborn is not judged by how many children the mother has her firstborn. It goes by a male, which means that one woman, and this was typical of Mitzrayim, would have many firstborns from many, many men. So in every house, there wasn't one firstborn, Rashi tells us, and others. There were multiple firstborns because Egypt, Mitzrayim, was a very licentious place, and women were having relations with many, many different people, and therefore there could be 4, 5, 10, 15 firstborns per house. One of those firstborns was Paro. Paro was one of the firstborns. So when this plague came around, things got, as they say, very, very personal, because his head is now on the chopping block. So he's going to freak out. So Moshe Rabbeinu says, I'll tell you what's going to happen. At midnight, we're going to have this makkah hit, and every firstborn is going to drop dead. That is what Hashem said to Moshe Rabbeinu, B'chatzot halayla, in the middle of the night. When Moshe Rabbeinu tells this to the people inside Egypt, my friends, he changes the letter from B to K, from midnight to around midnight, K'chatzot halayla. That one letter change changes everything. And we're going to learn something about Mitzrayim, which is going to reveal a lot of what the Jewish people were dealing with. And by the way, if they had it in Mitzrayim, this disease still exists today. I want to just mention, we say in the Musaf of Shabbat, in the Kedusha, that we want Hashem to Vigalenu Shinit, to redeem us the second time. Sound familiar, right? Vigalenu Shinit, please, Hashem, redeem us a second time. What is Shinit? Well, the first time is Mitzrayim. The second time is Mashiach. So whatever's happening over here, my dear friends, when it comes to us being in Galut, Mitzrayim, and going out for Geula, so too, we are hoping is going to happen when we get redeemed from the present Galut we're in right now, and give us a Geula, a complete redemption. So Mitzrayim isn't just a past event. Whatever's going on in Mitzrayim and the redemption reflects what's going to be happening at the end of days, which is pretty much accepted is happening right now. Okay, so now Mitzrayim. Oh, by the way, since I'm on the topic, I must mention a beautiful idea with you. Listen to this beautiful idea. You know that in the Kedusha of Musaf on Shabbat, we have a custom for the Chazan to sing out, Aye You can tell I'm not a chazan, right? And he holds that word for a long time. This is the custom among everyone. Sephardi chazanim, the better they're paid, the longer the ayeh. It can go on for like a minute. What is happening at that ayeh? So if you look at the small print, you get what's called a neshama yetera. An extra neshama is handed down to every person at that moment when ayeh is said. But what does it mean? Ayeh, makom, kavodo. So if you read it, it looks like a question. Ayeh, where? Makom is the place. Kavodo, of your royalty, of your greatness. It seems to be an unanswered question. Hashem, where is the place of your... This is the question which the malachim ask. Where is the location, Hashem, of your greatness? So the Rabbanim say something amazing. They say it's not only a question, it's also an answer. Ayeh is 3 letters. Aleph, Yud, Hey. Aleph, Yud, Hey. Which stands for Et Yom HaShabbat. So you're not saying where is the place, you're not only saying where is the place of your redemption, Hashem, you're actually saying Shabbat, Et Yom HaShabbat, is the place where you can connect to Hashem. So let's tie those 2 ideas together, which is the following. We want to be redeemed a second time, like we got out of Egypt. We want to get out of the present galut. How do we do that? Ayeh, Et Yom HaShabbat, is the source of our Me'en Olam Haba. It's the ability to bring us Geula, redemption. So we're actually, the Malachim are telling us, if you keep Shabbat, you get the Geula. The 2 are connected. And by the way, we know that the Jewish people did keep some kind of semblance of a Shabbat in Mitzrayim. We know that because Pharaoh called the Jewish people nirpim, lazy people, because they had a tradition that went back from the days of the Avot Ma'ot to rest a little bit on Shabbat. So he said, you lazy people, why can't you work 7 days a week like everybody else? Because we knew there was some, we didn't know the halachot. They weren't doing, halachot borer. There was no mishkan yet. However, they understood there was some reduction in the amount of work that we did, and that is what Yosef introduced in Mitzrayim when he started living there, and that continued until the Jewish people came as well. Okay, so we have this idea of around midnight. Around midnight. Why did Moshe Rabbeinu say around midnight? Hashem said, I'm going to hit them at midnight. He should give over exactly what they said. So Rashi gives us the answer. K'er chasot halayla, around midnight, and the rabbis say, Rabbeinu darshuhu, the rabbis tell us, Kama kishat ketzeti Mitzrayim, you're going to see that I'm going to take them out of Mitzrayim at around midnight. Why? So Rashi explains, because they're going to be experts who live in Mitzrayim. He calls them astrologers, but these are time expert people. People who are experts in time. And what are they going to do? They're going to be like, wait a minute. You said to me at midnight. It's now 11:59 or 12:01 or 12:02. And this makkah happened at a time that you didn't say. Oh, you see? You're a fake Moshe Rabbeinu. You're a charlatan. Moshe Rabbeinu did not want that to happen because he knew that the mistake of time would be with them. And therefore, he said it's going to happen around midnight because I know your clocks and your experts are going to get it wrong. And therefore, I put it at around midnight so that when it happens at exact midnight, but you mistake that and say it around midnight, you're going to believe as well. I want to understand how crazy this is. Imagine you're in Mitzrayim, and you're told by Moshe Rabbeinu for a few weeks, because the warnings came in most cases for a few weeks. He's going to be like, yeah, at midnight. Comes along midnight, nothing happens. 12:01, every firstborn dead. Are you telling me? The Mitzrayim will be like, well, you got it wrong. You said midnight, and now it's 12:01. That's crazy. Are they that obstinate? Are they that stupid, these people, that they would turn around and be like, oh, you said midnight, you were off by 1 minute. That's exactly what Moshe Rabbeinu was trying to avoid by saying at around midnight, so you don't mistake it, although it's happening at precisely midnight. We're learning that the people in Mitzrayim were the biggest ego-centric people who ever existed in world history. That they believed they could never be wrong. And if you were off by 1 iota, not for me. The hubris that existed in Mitzrayim, that they would doubt the power of Hashem and his messenger Moshe Rabbeinu was so insane that if they thought you were off by 1 minute, I don't believe you. Pure ego, no humility. That is what Moshe Rabbeinu had to avoid by saying Kechatzot and not Bechatzot at around midnight, because you guys, I know what you're like. And if you miscalculate it, you're not going to believe the message that I'm sending you. By the way, you should know, the Parsha itself tells us that everyone in Mitzrayim respected Moshe Rabbeinu. Gam ha'ish Moshe gadol ma'od beres Mitzrayim. At this point, they all respected him. Maybe that's why it says only the astrologers or the time experts would make this problem. Beinei avdei Paro, every servant of Paro respected it, and the people as well. The people at this point had broken. It was only Paro that Hashem hardened his heart, who did not change. Let's jump, because we have as well, at the end of the Parsha, a very interesting question that is going to be posed by future generations, says Moshe Rabbeinu. And of course, with all this story comes a mitzvah that we have every single day. What is the mitzvah we have to do every single day? Remember Yetziat Mitzrayim. There's a list, there's a checklist of things you have to remember every single day. One of those checklist things, which you'll see at the end of the opening of Sidurim, at the end of Shacharit, it comes with the zichronot, the remembrances you have to do every single day. One of them is that we left Egypt. But how do we fulfill this? Well, some people, holy people, will say that list at the end of Shacharit, but others say no. Right? In the Berachot, before, after the Shema itself, you have in mind, I'm going to remember Zecher Lietziat Mitzrayim. You fulfill that mitzvah, it's a daily mitzvah. However, we do know that one day we'll set aside through the year to fulfill all of these descriptions over here. And of course, that is the holiday of Pesach. Pesach is the day. Pesach, my dear friends, has 2 Torah mitzvot. We have many rabbinic mitzvot, 5 or 7, but there are 2 Torah mitzvot we have every single Pesach Seder. What are those Torah mitzvot at the Pesach Seder? Number 1, eating matzah. Matzah is one. And the other is Sipor Yetziat Mitzrayim, to tell the story. That's actually the word Pesach is Pesach. The mouth speaks. How do you know there's a Torah mitzvah? If a Torah mitzvah should be mentioned. It is mentioned in the Parsha. Ve'garata lebincha. Talk to your kids. By the way, that's the way to do the mitzvah. You're going to tell your children. Let's say a person doesn't have any children, then the youngest person there should be approached. The Gemara says, if you have a 99-year-old and a 98-year-old, the 98-year-old asks the questions, and the 99-year-old answers. Right? You put the 98-year-old on a chair, get him up there, and the 99-year-old answers the questions. That's actually the way it goes. And by the way, let's say a person, Lo Aleinu, who's by themselves for Pesach, in such a situation, they ask themselves the questions, and they read the Haggadah from Lahagid Lebincha, to tell over, to themselves. They ask and answer themselves. So there's a mitzvah for everyone, a Torah lover, no matter what your circumstance is, to read the story of Sipur Yetziat Mitzrayim. That is it. However, we are focused on the kids. I don't know if this is true for any other holiday. Do we focus on the kids on Sukkot? No. Do we focus on the kids on Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur? Do we keep them up by giving them special treats and gifts, and we hide the Afikomen on the other holidays? No. That is just exclusively for Pesach. Pesach is the kids. I remember I tried to do the same thing. I used to go to my Rosh Yeshiva on Pesach. I was a bachor, I was a single guy. I was one of the older singles in my yeshiva. It took me a long time to find a woman who was willing to put up with me. And so I used to go every Pesach, I used to go to my Rosh Yeshiva. And usually, on a regular Shabbat, he would put the guests next to him, right, and the rest of the family would sit at random places. On Pesach, at the Seder, he would put his youngest child, right next to him. Right next to him, put his child, and he would direct the entire Seder of Pesach towards that child. Everyone else would be part of it, but he would talk to the child the entire night. He would ask him questions, and he would have the child, and he would give him gifts. This is an ancient tradition. Rabbi Akiva, says the Gemara, it's going to sound crazy, would keep his young children engaged in the process by handing egozim, by handing out nuts to them to keep them excited. Imagine trying that today. Try to entice my kids to ask questions by giving them walnuts. All right, you know what? They'd call me nuts if I did that. All right, nowadays you've got to give them like big prizes. Right, your average kid today wants an Xbox, a PlayStation. Right? When I grew up, we used to get a bar of soap. I know it sounds crazy. That's what we used to get, right, in order to entice us. In order to ask questions. Anyway, it works. And so we talk to the children. Why are we talking to the kids? And who are these children, by the way? Why do children feature so centrally into the Pesach Seder? And why is the parasha exclusively pulling them from everyone else in order to hear this story? So let's talk about the 4 children, the Arba Banim, that appear in the Haggadah, at the beginning of the Haggadah. Let's go through, because the questions that 3 of these kids ask are in the parasha. So let's go through them, because there's a lot of beauty and depth to who these 4 children actually are. Child number 1 is let's go through this. Number 1 is the Chacham, the wise child. The wise child. Interestingly, he's the wisest, but he has no answers. What does the wise child do in the Haggadah? He asks a question. But it's a very good question. Wisdom for us comes from asking questions, not always knowing the answers. Da'at is knowing answers. My computer, my Google, my AI knows answers. But my AI has no wisdom. Wisdom comes from a much deeper, more nuanced place that comes by asking questions. That's how you grow wisdom, by understanding the person, listening to them, looking at the context. It's not one answer fit all. Everyone has their own deal and baggage, so every question has to be, and you only learn that by getting to know the person, by asking. That's why the word for wisdom is chokhmah, which is actually 2 words. What's chokhmah? 2 words cut apart. Koach ma, the power of what? The power of asking questions. So that's the wise kid. The wise child for us asks questions. Child number 2 is the rasha, the bad child. He also has questions, but his questions, or question, is very cynical. Ma avodah, what are you doing over here? Why are you so antiquated? Why are you still eating matzah? Why are you keeping Shabbat? Why are you keeping kosher? This is so old. It's so Middle Ages. It's so 1958. What are you doing over here? That's the rasha. I always thought the rasha was the worst of all 4. But I'm going to show you, actually, he isn't. Let's go down the list and I'll show you why. Child number 3 is the Eno Yodea Lishol. Sorry, next is the Tam, Mechila. Next is the Tam. The Tam is the simple child. The simple child has a question, but his question is very simple. He says, Mazot, what is this matzah? What are these 4 cups of wine? This child is not cynical, is not even skeptical, it's just simple, doesn't know, didn't have, we'll see in a moment, a good Jewish education. So that's the Tam. Last of all, which actually we're going to see is the worst of all 4, is the Ena Yodea Lishol. This child doesn't even have questions to ask. This child doesn't even realize there should be questions you ask. They're so disconnected that they're just there. So what do you do with that child? You feed that child the question and the answer. The Lubavitcher Rebbe, Zechasel Livracha, very famous idea, would say, okay, where's the 5th son? Where's the 5th son? Why does it stop at 4? Why is there no 5th one? Very famous question, and the answer is going to be a life-altering answer. In order to explain that, we have to see that these 4 kids aren't just 4 random children, they are 4 generations. You have a great-grandfather, a grandfather, a father, and a son. Or if you want, a great-grandmother, a grandmother, a mother, and a daughter. And these are 4 generations that reduce in knowledge and Jewish connection. He says like this, and this is true for everyone, right? It starts with a great-grandfather. Every Jew who is affiliated today at some degree always has one, must have had. It's by definition, one great-grandparent who was connected to Torah mitzvot. At least one out of the 8. That has to be. Why? Because we see there's a 4-generational lag There's arba dorot, 4 generations. That if you don't get one person affiliated by 4 generations, it's gone completely. That's why everyone's great-grandfather, always there's one, was the rabbi. Was that true? My great-grandfather, everyone says to me, he was so religious. He was the rabbi in Morocco. He's the rabbi in Persia. He was so religious. Oh, crazy rabbi. Don't look at me. You should know my great-grandfather told me he was a great chacham. I'm like, he must have been. He must have been, or you would not be affiliating Jewish now. You had to at least have one. Oh, my great-grandmother, they tell me, she used to sit by the candles Friday night. She would pray to Hashem and open her hands, say Tehillim for 15 hours a day. It has to be, because you would not be Jewish if she hadn't, because there's a 4-generational lag. Unfortunately, the next child may rebel. Like they came to America, they were all religious, and then you came to the new country, and this repeats itself many times in history, and the next child is like, I don't know, it's so old, rebels against their father. That is the Rasha. Now this Rasha has an education, and he has questions, he knows what to ask. This is the Kofer, he goes against, but he's rebelling against his father and his mother. That's the next one. What's after that? The Tam, the simple child. Now this simple child is the grandchild, the grandson or granddaughter of the Chacham. And most of us remember our grandparents. They were at a Pesach Seder, they were at a Shiur. We have some kind of recollection of who they were. That's understandable. Most of us remember. So, you know what? Oh yeah, I remember this matzah. I remember these 4 cups. I remember the smell of the chicken soup and the food and the charoset and the maror. It's in my ability to remember. Masorti, yeah, they're there. They're just holding on. They have. Why? Because everyone remembers their grandparents. But there's a problem. How many of us remember our great-grandparents? Most of us don't even probably know the names of our great-grandparents. Right? So that child already is the Enodei Lishol. This child doesn't even know there are questions to be asked because they're 4 generations off. Once you don't restart the chokhmah, the wisdom in the Jewish family, you get the 4th generation, they're there. They're at the Pesach Seder, but they're barely hanging on. They don't even know there's questions to be asked. Where's the 5th son? Well, the 5th son is the child of the Eno Yodeh Lishol. That child, says the Lubavitch Rebbe, the 5th son is not at the table at all. So our job, he said, which is what he lived by, is to go out into society, find the 5th son or the 5th daughter and schlep them to the Pesach Seder, make them into the wise child, right, and restart the process again. He says that's the secret of the Arba Banim. It's not just, it's 4 approaches. So why is the Torah telling us, Moshe Rabbeinu, at the moment, during this event, is saying, V'higeret lebincha. He was saying, guys, it's all well and good that we're going through this redemption. It's all well and good that you understand. But if you don't focus on the next generation, if you're not focusing on generation number 2, it's going to go. It's going to disappear. Every generation has to be made into a chacham. That's what it's about. The secret to Jewish continuity is not to make yourself into a wise person, is to figure out how your children, or if not your grandchildren, or someone else's children, right? In your Bet Knesset, in your group, in your community, how to make them, whether you sponsor programs, sponsor learning, giving them the chance to become a chacham. At least you're guaranteed, by doing so, another 4 generational gap. And by then, don't worry, B'ezrat Hashem, Mashiach is going to come. We're going to be redeemed for a second time. That is the secret of children being the focus. And everything that we do is to bring children and engage them from as early age as possible. That is the secret. The Gemara tells us that people, women, holy women used to bring their children in their cots to the Bet Knesset. And the rabbis would be like, why are you doing that? They don't understand what's happening. And she says, just being in the presence of Torah and Tefillah is going to impact them through some kind of osmosis. It gets absorbed into the child themselves. And so the Torah, I know people get very upset when kids come to the synagogue and they make noise and shh, quiet. I understand. It's frustrating. But if they're not there, you're wasting your time. Because if we don't engage the next generation, the continuity is not going to continue. Under 5 years old. I'm going to change that. Rav Samson Hirsch says, even under 5. Let them be there. Nowadays, they should be there as early as possible. They need to be there. They need to feel the spirit. In our generation, you want them involved as early as possible. Things have changed.
Yeah, I understand. That the word olech, אבל יש לך ראשון ברמב"ם that establish הלכות לפי 613 במשנה תורה. So how
He does say that. He does say that. I've heard a few rabbanim say that. Under 5 it comes disturbs. We see from the Gemara, Brura used to bring her child as a baby under 5 years old. She was nervous about a child, and she used to bring her child as a young baby to the Bet Knesset. The rabbanim got upset, and she argued and said no, and she stayed with her baby and brought her baby every single day to hear the Torah and hear the Tefillah. Okay, if the child gets too upset, too noisy, okay, you take them out. But nowadays, it's very, very important. And that's why I always say, I said again, every Bet Knesset needs a candy man. Every Bet Knesset needs a candy man. And my father, should live and be well, is the candy man in his Bet Knesset in London. It's a very big schut. And by the way, you need a backup candy man unless he's away. It was a big problem, right? The rabbi's away, whatever, there's no drasha. Candy man not there, we got a big problem. We got to bring the candy man in and a scan. I went to London last visit. I took a suitcase full of candy. I think I mentioned this, right? And my father, within 1 week, he said he ran out of it. Very, very important. Ve'igart al-bincha is the mitzvah. You should have a wonderful, wonderful, successful day. And thank you to Philip for sponsoring. Should be an aliyah for your father's neshama, alav shalom. Thank you.